Welcome to Life Stories, where sometimes the people who say they love you the most are the ones who lock you out in the cold. Imagine coming home for the first time in years, heart pounding, hands full of carefully chosen gifts, only to be met at the door by the one person you never stopped hoping would embrace you. And instead, she says, "We don't want you here." This is a story about family, about what happens when silence becomes a weapon, love turns conditional, and the truth is buried beneath years of polite smiles and unspoken pain. But it's also about something more, the kind of courage it takes to come back anyway. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own home, or wondered what it takes to heal a wound that no one wants to admit is bleeding, stay with me. Let me take you to a quiet porch on a snowy Christmas Eve, where everything begins to unravel. Snow crunched beneath Claire's boots as she stepped onto the porch she hadn't seen in 3 years. The air in Willow Creek was sharp, biting into her cheeks like punishment. Her fingers trembled, not just from the cold, but from the weight of what this moment meant. She clutched a paper bag filled with carefully wrapped gifts, tokens of peace, or perhaps penance, and stared at the familiar door. White lights outlined the eaves. A wooden nativity scene stood guard on the front lawn, its paint chipping from decades of Michigan winters. The scene looked unchanged. But Claire knew better. Nothing inside this house had remained the same since she left. When the door opened, it wasn't her father's warm smile she saw first. It was Savannah. Always composed, always perfectly styled, her green velvet dress hugging a body sculpted by both genetics and ambition. Her blonde curls bounced with a cruel kind of grace. Claire had rehearsed this moment, hoped, even, but she hadn't prepared for the way Savannah's eyes sharpened, scanning her like an infection. "We don't want you here," Savannah said, her voice low and clean, like the swipe of a scalpel. "Go ruin someone else's Christmas." Claire's breath hitched. Behind Savannah, inside the warm golden glow of the house, her entire family laughed around the table. Her brother Tyler holding a glass of wine, her mother Linda carefully slicing cranberry sauce into the crystal dish, and her father Mark carving turkey the way he always had, sleeves rolled to his elbows, wearing that stupid plaid apron Claire had once given him as a joke. Grandma Eleanor was seated, regal and silver-haired, and the kids, Emma and Noah, were giggling as they tossed napkin rings. It was a painting of familial joy, one she no longer belonged to. "I got it," Claire whispered. Her voice cracked, but Savannah didn't flinch. No one else even looked toward the door. She turned away, stepping carefully down the porch, the presence feeling absurd now, props in a play where she'd been cut from the cast. Back in her rental car, she didn't start the engine. She just sat there, snow settling on the windshield, clouding the view of the house that had once been hers. Her hands shook so hard she dropped the keys twice. Her breath fogged the glass as tears slid down her face in silence. 3 years away. 3 years of building a life in San Francisco, grueling hours at Stratton & Co., chasing clients who barely remembered her name, but a life nonetheless. And all of it for this? Then came the sound she didn't expect, pounding footsteps. The front door flew open. Her father burst out, wearing nothing but slacks and that apron, no coat, his dress shoes sliding dangerously on the ice. "Claire!" he called, voice hoarse with something more than cold. "Claire, wait." She rolled down the window halfway, couldn't look at him, could barely breathe. "Please," he said, kneeling slightly to meet her eye level, breath clouding between them. "Come inside." She said I wasn't welcome. She was wrong. Claire let the silence sit between them for a beat too long. Then she spoke. "It's not just Savannah, Dad. It's everyone. I've been out of this family so long, I don't even know if I fit anymore." "You fit," he said. "You've always fit. They're stuck. You grew. They didn't know how to." Claire looked at him then, really looked. There were more lines in his face than she remembered, and something tired behind his eyes, something defeated, but also something else. Urgency, regret. "There's something you need to know," he said, glancing toward the house. "Savannah, she's not as perfect as she wants people to believe. Michael's firm let him go last spring. They had to sell their house. She applied for a regional marketing job in Grand Rapids and didn't get it. When she heard about your promotion..." He trailed off. Claire blinked. She's jealous of me? She's angry that you became everything she didn't know she wanted, and she took it out on you. Claire stared out at the snow-covered lawn. Her chest felt heavy, but not in the same way. This weight was different. It had shape. It had meaning. That still doesn't excuse what she said. No, he agreed, but it's a start to understanding it. And maybe a start to healing. Claire exhaled, a long breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. For you, she said. I'll come in for you. Back in the house, the tension sliced sharper than the chilled air outside. Conversations dropped to a hush when she entered. Grandma Eleanor, ever the matriarch, rose immediately and embraced her. My traveling girl, she whispered, warm and lavender-scented. About damn time. But the others? Tyler gave her an awkward smile. Brooke waved politely. Linda stood at the kitchen counter, visibly startled. Come in before you catch pneumonia, she said. Not exactly an olive branch. Claire took the seat furthest from Savannah, who sat rigidly at the other end of the table, her plate untouched. As the meal limped on, filled with half-hearted questions, veiled jabs, and overly bright cheer, Claire kept her mask on, smiling, nodding, answering when spoken to, until dessert. Savannah stood, tapped her wine glass. We have an announcement, she said, and immediately the air in the room changed. Michael stood, wrapping an arm around her. We're expecting, she beamed. Number 3. The family erupted into cheers. Linda cried. Tyler toasted. Claire clapped, polite but hollow. Then Savannah's gaze met hers. Her smile tightened. There's just nothing more important than family. Real family. The ones who stay. Claire's chair scraped the floor as she stood. Congratulations, she said. And since we're sharing truths tonight, I have one too. The room fell deathly still. I came back because Dad asked me. I came back hoping things had changed. But I see now I'm the one who changed. I've built a life, a career, a home, without any of you in it. And yet I still wanted this, to belong, even after being told point blank that I wasn't welcome. Her eyes swept the table. So here's the truth. I'm done pretending. Savannah scoffed. There it is, always about you. But before Claire could respond, Grandma Eleanor's voice rang out, sharp and clear. Sit down, Savannah. The room froze. You owe your sister more than jealousy dressed up as righteousness. You all do. Everyone turned to the old woman, stunned into silence. Claire stared at her grandmother, so frail now, but her presence filled the room like a bell toll. Claire set her dessert fork down, slowly. You know what, Grandma? For the first time in years, I think I believe that. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like a stranger to people who were supposed to love you most? What's the price of staying silent to keep the peace? As the door to the sunroom opened and tension spilled into the glass-walled space, something even deeper was about to unravel. One truth that could shift everything they thought they knew. The sunroom was always Claire's favorite part of the house, a quiet glass enclave where snow painted the windows like stained glass, and the outside world felt distant, even dreamlike. But tonight, it was something else entirely. A makeshift courtroom. Her father paced near the radiator, his breath still fogging slightly in the chill. Grandma Eleanor sat in her rocking chair, arms crossed with matriarchal authority. Tyler leaned against the doorframe, silent but tense. Savannah perched on the ottoman across from Claire, her posture a portrait of elegance under pressure, but her eyes flared with something rawer. Linda stood with her arms folded, hovering between defense and denial, her cardigan slightly askew as if the confrontation had frayed her carefully cultivated image. Mark was the first to speak. I owe you all an apology, especially you, Claire. He looked at her, and for the first time since childhood, she saw him not just as a father, but as a man trying not to break under the weight of his own inaction. For years, I've tried to smooth things over, hoping silence would keep the family intact. But silence has only hardened the cracks. No one asked you to speak for us, Savannah snapped, crossing her legs. Claire always finds a way to make herself the center of attention, even now. I didn't ask to be pushed out, Claire replied evenly. I didn't ask to be told not to come home. You did that, Savannah. You closed the door. Savannah's mouth opened, then shut. Her fingers clenched into fists on her lap. Mark turned to her. You're not blameless here. Whatever's going on with you, it doesn't excuse what you said. You need to take responsibility. Savannah scoffed, then looked away. Why should I apologize to someone who made it clear this place was beneath her? I never said that, Claire shot back, her voice rising for the first time. I left because I needed to breathe. That doesn't mean I didn't love this family. I called. I wrote. I invited you all to visit. You never came. Not once. I had kids, Savannah muttered. You had excuses, Claire said. You were never going to come. Not even when I was promoted. Not even when I was struggling. You didn't want to see me, because seeing me meant seeing what you gave up. Savannah's eyes snapped to hers. You think I gave up something? Her voice trembled. Not with rage, but with something deeper, sharper. Michael's business failed. I'm working part-time just to pay the mortgage. I applied to 3 jobs I wasn't even qualified for because I was desperate to feel useful. And then Mom sends me your LinkedIn updates like trophies. Look at Claire. Look how well she's doing. She's even in Forbes now. Like that's supposed to make me proud. Like it doesn't twist the knife every single time. The words hung in the air like frost. Claire blinked. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. You were too busy being the shining daughter. That's not how I ever saw myself, Claire whispered. But it's how Mom talks about you when you're not here, Savannah said bitterly, and suddenly all eyes turned to Linda. The silence that followed wasn't just heavy, it was shattering. Linda looked between her daughters, mouth parted. That's not fair. It's true, Tyler said quietly. You always framed Claire's independence like rebellion. When she got that job in San Francisco, you told people she was trying to make a point. Not that she earned it. Not that it was brave. Linda's face crumpled just slightly at the edges, like a page finally starting to fold. I didn't understand her choices, and maybe I resented that she had them. Claire looked at her mother, this woman who'd always been so precise, so poised. The kitchen queen, the voice of tradition. And for the first time, Claire saw the fear behind her mother's sharpness, the fear of being left behind, of being irrelevant in a world that no longer praised her kind of strength. I had a chance once, Linda said softly, an offer in Chicago after college, a copywriting job, but your grandmother said women didn't leave home, and I stayed. I married. I taught 3rd grade. And some days, I wonder what life might have been if I'd just gotten on the train. Claire's breath caught. It was the closest thing to understanding they'd ever shared. You never told me that. There's a lot I never told you, because I didn't want you to make the same mistakes. But I see now, you didn't make mistakes. You just didn't choose me. Claire blinked fast, the sting in her eyes rising. Maybe we all didn't, Savannah said suddenly. Maybe we kept trying to turn Claire into someone familiar, and when she refused, we treated her like a threat. There it was, the twist, not betrayal, not resentment, but the quiet, collective cruelty of a family that couldn't make space for change. That twist of the knife wasn't just Savannah's. They all held the handle. Claire leaned forward. So what now? No one answered immediately. Then, Grandma Eleanor, who had remained silent through most of the exchange, cleared her throat. Now, she said, her voice a little hoarse but unwavering, you decide if you want to keep surviving as a family built on performance or start living as one built on truth. Claire looked around the room, at Savannah's tear-lined face, at Linda's shattered poise, at her father's clenched jaw, at the brother who had watched silently for so long and finally spoken. And she realized the real question wasn't whether she still belonged here. The question was, were they brave enough to grow with her? What would you do if the people who hurt you finally admitted they were wrong, but you no longer knew how to let them back in? As snow began to fall again outside the glass walls, Claire's phone vibrated with a message that could unravel everything they had just begun to rebuild. Claire's phone buzzed once in her lap. She glanced down. One new message. From Michael, Savannah doesn't know I'm sending this, but I think you should know. She's pregnant again, and scared, really scared. That's part of why she lashed out. Just maybe don't give up on her yet. Claire stared at the screen, numb. She hadn't even realized her hands had gone cold again. Her sister, the same one who'd locked her out on Christmas Eve, the same one who'd cut her down with every word, was expecting a child while drowning in fear. She thought of Savannah's carefully composed posture, the way her hands trembled just slightly when they weren't holding a wine glass or a well-rehearsed sentence. And suddenly, the fury she'd carried with her from San Francisco, through the airport, onto this snowy porch. It didn't feel quite as solid anymore. She pocketed the phone, quietly. No one else in the sunroom noticed. They were still reeling from Grandma Eleanor's quiet challenge, decide who you want to be as a family. And now, Claire had a decision to make that none of them could make for her. "I'm not staying at the hotel tonight," she said finally, her voice softer now. "But not because everything's fine. It's not. We're nowhere near fine. But maybe that's not the goal anymore. Maybe it's just showing up, even when it's messy." Her father exhaled, and for the first time that evening, his shoulders fell into something close to relief. Linda gave the smallest nod. Tyler looked at her like maybe, just maybe, they'd all underestimated her backbone. Savannah didn't speak. She looked down at her hands, pale and clenched in her lap. Claire stood. "I'm going to bed. I've had enough emotional warfare for one Christmas." She turned, but just as she reached the door, she stopped. "Savannah?" Her sister looked up. "I'm not asking for a perfect apology. But when you're ready, I'm still here, even if I'm not always here." Savannah didn't nod, didn't speak, but something behind her eyes shifted. And for now, that was enough. That night, Claire lay in her old bedroom, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars still stuck to the ceiling. It smelled like old paperbacks and dried lavender sachets. Her fingers curled around the edge of the worn quilt, the one Grandma Eleanor had sewn when she was 12. The house creaked familiarly around her. Somewhere downstairs, the dishwasher hummed. In the hallway, floorboards whispered under someone's weight. Dad, probably, doing a last round of checking locks before bed. It was all so known, and yet entirely foreign. She didn't sleep well. Her dreams were thick with voices. Savannah's, her mother's, even Michael's, though oddly his had taken on the voice of a voicemail she couldn't remember hearing. But when morning came, the air was quiet, still. And Claire woke not to tension, but to the smell of coffee and cinnamon. She padded downstairs in socks, hair tousled, heart cautious. Linda stood in the kitchen, wearing one of Mark's flannel shirts over her pajama pants. The sleeves were rolled up awkwardly, and her hair was pulled back into a clip. She looked human. "There's still some French roast left," she said without turning. "Not as fancy as that Seattle stuff, but it'll wake you up." Claire poured herself a mug. She hesitated, then leaned against the counter. "Mom, I need to ask. When I left after college, did you think I was abandoning you?" Linda paused, her hands stilling over a mixing bowl. "Yes," she said, "but I know now that was my own fear talking. I was scared you'd outgrow us, that you'd forget where you came from. Turns out you never did. We just stopped asking." Claire nodded slowly. "I didn't leave because I hated it here. I left because I didn't want to shrink to fit it." "I know." Her mother whispered. "I'm sorry I didn't see it then." They stood like that for a while, two women with too many shared silences, finally letting the truth warm the air between them. Later that afternoon, Savannah approached Claire by the fireplace. Everyone else had migrated outside for snowman building. Emma had declared a snowball war. Savannah held a steaming mug of cider in both hands like armor. "I read what you wrote on Instagram," she said, "about navigating family pain and still choosing to show up." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Didn't know you followed me." "I don't. Michael sent it to me." Savannah looked down at the fire. "You're a better writer than I remember." Claire said nothing. "I was scared," Savannah continued. "When I found out I was pregnant again, it wasn't joy I felt. It was dread. We're behind on the mortgage. Michael's applying to work at his cousin's auto shop just to keep us above water. And when I heard you were coming home, Miss San Francisco with her big career and freedom and no stretch marks, I panicked. I lashed out." Claire looked at her sister, at the way the firelight revealed shadows under her eyes and a crack in her voice. And she thought about all the nights in her apartment, eating takeout alone, wondering what it would feel like to be known again by someone who mattered. "I don't need you to be perfect," Claire said. "I just need you to stop pushing me away before I even get close." Savannah gave a slow nod. "Deal." Claire took the cider from her hands and sipped it. Still too much nutmeg. Some things never change, Savannah said, smiling despite herself. The family sat down to dinner again that night, this time around a mismatched set of dishes because the good china was still soaking in the sink. There was no announcement, no performance, just food, clattering forks, Grandma Eleanor retelling the story about the raccoon in the attic for the 8th time, and laughter, real laughter. After dessert, Mark stood and raised a glass. To Claire, he said, for coming home even when we didn't deserve it, and to the rest of us, for finally starting to. Glasses clinked. Claire didn't cry, but her hands trembled just slightly as she lifted her glass. Later, as the sky deepened into violet and the snow turned silver in the moonlight, Claire stepped outside onto the porch again. Same crunch of snow, same chill in her lungs, but this time the door stayed open behind her. She looked up. Stars blinked in the sky like a promise. Her phone buzzed again. This time, a new message from Tyler. Thinking of coming out to SF in the spring. Emma wants to see the ocean. Could we crash with you for a few days? Claire smiled, tapped out a reply. Absolutely. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like someone who had left. She felt like someone who had finally arrived. How did this story resonate with you personally? Which moment stayed with you the most? If this story moved you, drop a 100 in the comments. Where are you watching from today? Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that healing is always possible. Thank you for watching Life Stories.